Hello chess friends, and welcome to this out of chess channel, and welcome back to the King's Indian madness that's going on now these days. It's a King's Indian tournament between the four top engines of these days. These are of course Leela C0, the Dragon engine, Stockfish 13, and also the Stockfish classical version. So far it's really incredible. Leela C0 is in the lead. Leela C0 has a comfortable 2-point lead in front of Stockfish 13, which is really incredible. Although we have to say Stockfish has to play one more game. If maybe Stockfish wins one game, then Stockfish will be only 1 point behind Leela C0, but still I think this is a great result for Leela C0. Recently it was a pure domination by Stockfish 13 in every opening. Stockfish won the tournament, so now maybe it could be Leela C0's time to finally win again a new tournament, because so far Leela C0 played the best chess in the King's Indian defense. So let's check out now one great game played by Leela C0 against the Dragon engine. I think this game is very important. As you see now, very nice ideas, very nice new ideas in the King's Indian, because these are some lines that have been never played in chess history. Here Leela C0 will introduce to us a very nice flank attack when the kings are on the same side. Basically this king flank attacks are possible many times when the kings are on opposite sides, but here in this particular game Leela C0 will create an early flank attack with the kings on the same sides, which really surprised me. I think it was a very risky choice, but a very sharp attack by this top engine. So let's check out now the game. Here Leela C0 opened with the move d4, but we're not analyzing so much this particular lines because they were prearranged. Knight to f6, c4, g6, knight to c3, bishop to g7, e4, d6 still prearranged, bishop to e2, castling, knight to f3, and now e5, castling, knight to d7, the last prearranged move. It's now the orthodox variation of the classical variation of the King's Indian. What black is hoping for always, I think, in the orthodox or classical variation is a clarification in the center with the move d5. The move d5 is creating a block pawn structure. When the pawn structure is blocked, when the pawn structure is fixed in the center, then at least you know where to attack, because the pawns are showing you the direction of the attack. So it means white will try b4 c5 attacks. The pawn chain is showing you the direction towards the queen side. On the other hand, black will try the normal King's Indian attack with f4 f5, but here Leela C0 delays the situation in the center. It's saying that we don't want to clarification in the center, we want to play with more pieces towards the center. If you want now to take, he takes d4 like Dragon did, then of course we can recapture with the knight, and we have reached now sort of a Marozzi bind structure where, well, of course we have the c4 pawn advanced, this also e4 pawn, and basically all of our pieces are centralized around the square d4. So what to do here? Maybe there is also this line knight to g4, maybe to further attack the bishop here, but it's not so good. I think after bishop to g5, maybe f6 could be the possibility here. After bishop to h4, I don't think that black has gained so much. You could maybe kick away further the bishop with the move g5, but after bishop to g3, I don't think that it's such a great line for black. Although you have kicked away this very annoying bishop, but you have weakened also the pawn structure. You have weakened also the pawn structure here in the front of the king, so you could be vulnerable to some light square attack. So as said, e takes d4 was played here by Dragon. We have knight to d4 and now c6, building the so-called Boleslavsky wall structure. This Boleslavsky wall structure, it's a very annoying structure sometimes to face, because these two pawns are restricting this four very important squares here on the board, so no minor piece activity for white there. But when we watch now also the pawn structure from black's perspective, this d6 is a long-term weakness. So one of the main strategical goals and tactical goals for black is to advance the pawn with the move d5. Black would love to somehow improve this position by simply pushing the pawn on d5. Here in the continuation, Leela C0 tries now the normal move queen to c2 with ideas of rook to d1, and then getting the rook on the same file where the queen is, and then never ever allow black to play d5 himself. So here a6 play by Dragon. It's also a very often idea. It's similar to the to this Benoni structures and similar, where we're trying somehow to play the move b5 with the support of the dark square bishop, somehow get b5 b4, but so far you have to take care of your c6 pawn. So far you cannot play the move b5, you lose the c6, so that's why here after move a6, rook to d1, as we said, normal ideas, getting the rook where the queen is. Now the Dragon engine goes simply queen to c7. Now finally trying to play the move b5. In the continuation of the game now, already in my opinion a surprise. This position has never been reached before, I think, chat's history. At least I'm not seeing a top grandmaster game or a master game in the database. g4 creating an immediate flank attack where when the kings are on the same side, it's very risky. Of course you have the opportunity maybe to attack the knight, but you're also weakening the pawn structure in front of the king. So it's very cool idea here by Nc3, because it seems so that black could be faster with the move b5. But actually, if you try b5 here immediately, it seemed to me at least like a good idea, but it's not so good, because you get simply c takes b5, and the problem is now you cannot take with the a pawn. You would love to take with the a pawn, but then you get simply knight to b5, and you're tactically lost here on the c file. So you would be forced here to take with the c pawn, and I don't think that it brings you so much. You see, you don't have any attacking opportunities anymore on the queen side. It's a symmetrical position on the queen side now. I think white should simply proceed with the normal idea g5. After knight to e8, we can simply play f4, and if you try even b4, I don't think it's so dangerous, because we can play knight to d5. Okay, maybe black can trade off the queens here on the c file. Maybe black can even take the pawn on b2, but the activity now of white's pieces, I think, is simply too much to handle for black. We can play simply knight takes b4, and you see now these bishops are very dangerous towards both sides. This knight is very dangerous. Knight to e7 could happen. We can also try knight to b6. We can also try rook to b1, then afterwards rook to c1, getting both of these rooks on this open files. So I think when it comes to piece activity, white is much better. So that's why here b5 is not so dangerous. As we said, black would love to play this move, expand on the queen side, but it doesn't bring so much, I think. So here in the game, after move g4, in the continuation of the game, Dragon tried knight to c5. It's a very often also played line, simply creating further the attack against the weak pawn on e4. Now trying some ideas of rook to e8. In the continuation here, f3 was played by Nc3, and now knight to e6. A very nice maneuver, which is trying to simplify the game. In the continuation here, a4 played by Nc3, and now a5 by Dragon Engine. Now also maybe after knight takes d4, finally after bishop to d4, maybe get rook to b8, and finally this b5. But it seems to me always that black is simply too slow here. Black played now many tempi with pawns, with knights, just in order to make one move, and it doesn't bring you so much. We have seen that maybe you can create that, but it doesn't bring so much. There is simply no activity. There's not simply too much to attack now anymore on the queen side, because all the pieces are maneuvered, I think, towards the king side, and white has a pure domination, I think, on the king side with this advanced g4 pawn, with the bishop's activity towards the king side, with opportunities to play even h4. Now I think white is much better. So here in the game, queen to d2 was played by Nc3. We have now knight to c5 again. We have king to h1. Very nice move by Nc3. Lila is trying now rook to g1 and simply advance the pawn on g5. In the continuation of the game, rook to a6, and this is again a very risky rook lift. We have seen also recently by the Stockfish 13 engine that Stockfish rook got trapped on b6, and it's really wild that the same thing will also happen here. So Nc3 trapped twice the rook by Stockfish 13. We have covered also that game. You can also check it out. Also, the rook on b6 was trapped by Stockfish 13, but also here you see that the Dragon Engine will have the problems around the square b6. Here in the continuation, rook to g1, normal move by Nc3, and now comes this move, rook to b6. And now Nc3 will play a really brilliant attack. First g5, we have knight to h5 by the Dragon Engine, and now comes really here a monster move by Nc3. It's the move knight from d to b5. What to do here? If you take here c takes b5, then you get simply knight to d5. You get the fork. You have to retreat with the queen if you want to, of course, protect your rook on b6. But now Nc3 can simply take, and after c takes b5, you see again the rook is trapped. Really sick stuff. And then we can maybe fix the position further with b3, or we can take out bishop takes c5. The knight can be taken first, of course. Also the rook here. We can also take out the pawn. So again, the rook is trapped on b6. Really well about stuff, and then it's really incredible that in the game between Stockfish 13 and Lila C0, Stockfish 13's also rook got trapped on b6. So I'm not sure what's going on with this engine, why they're pushing this rooks to b6, getting the rook trapped like this. It's really a suicide mission here by both of these engines. So here, as we said, knight to b5, played by Lila C0, Dragon played now rook takes b5, realized the tactical problems around the square b6. Now after c takes b5, we have bishop to e5, now bishop to c4, and now queen to e7, and now b3. Very important move now to fix the pawn structure on the queen side. We want also now to find new good squares on the board. I think the bishop's activity on e3 is perfectly fine. The bishop on c4 is also good. The only minor piece that needs some kind of an improvement, I think it's the knight to c3, knight to e2 can happen, and then we could maybe try some f4 ideas, simply pushing the pawn further. So in the game here, bishop to e6, played by Dragon, we have bishop takes c5, d takes c5, and now comes this idea, knight to e2, bishop to c7. Here the Dragon engine is maybe trying some queen and bishop batteries. If the queen gets somehow here maybe to e5, then the attack could be very dangerous around the square h2, but Lila C0 is preventing these ideas with queen to e3, knight to g7, and now after rook to d3, you can notice with that we can always play still the move f4, and then also the move e5, paralyzing the dark squares, never ever allow black to create this very annoying battery. So after move rook to d3, we have rook to e8, rook to d1, we have bishop to c8, and now knight to g3. Basically, it's a provocative move here by Lila C0. If you want to take out the knight, take it, but at least you have lost your very important dark square bishop. So here in the game, after knight to g3, knight to e6, played by Dragon, and we have now e5. And it seems so again that something went wrong, that you could maybe take out here this pawn, but it's actually not so good. You can grab one pawn, but you get simply f4. Again, you have to retreat, and I think this idea is very important to move knight to e4 and then followed with knight to f6 or knight to d6. These are two very important squares to occupy, and I think again strategically black is simply lost. And we have to say, of course, white is also up the whole exchange, so that's why these two squares are simply unprotectable anymore. Even if you get out of the range, even if you don't get forked with knight to f6, I think we can simplify the position by playing knight to d6, cementing our knight. And again, if you want to give up your bishop, well, you can take rook takes d6, rook takes d6, and again, this is a much better position here for white. So after move e5 here, the Dragon engine tried to move knight to d4, cementing also the knight on a very active square. Now comes f4, we have c takes b5, a takes b5, we have b6, and now knight to e4. Anyway, again searching for knight to f6 ideas or knight to d6 ideas. So king to g7, we have knight to f6, rook to h8, and now rook takes d4, played by Lila C0. Lila C0 doesn't want to tolerate this knight, this centralized knight, which was very good. After rook takes d4, c takes d4, queen to d4, and now rook to d8. We have now knight to d5, covering, of course. You cannot escape. If you move the queen, you lose simply the rook. Then maybe the bishops can come into the game. This is now very important to cover this light square diagonal. Bishop to b7 is now a serious threat. So in the game, knight to d5, we have queen to c5, queen takes c5, and now after b takes c5, the king is now going towards the center. King to f2, bishop to b6. Now the king gets out of the range, and now finally Dragon simply takes. It seems so that it could be a drawish game because these are opposite colored bishops now on the board. After rook to d5, rook takes d5, bishop to d5. But now after c4, we have bishop to c4. At least Dragon liberated this dark square bishop, because the dark square bishop was simply too blocked out by its own pawns. You see here, if you don't play the move c5, the bishop is blocked out by this very healthy pawn structure that white has built here, but it's also blocked out here by its own pawn. So that's why at least some kind of an activity that Dragon is searching here with the move c4. We have bishop takes c4. After king to f8, king to f3, of course you have to play with your king. And now after king to e7, now comes a brilliant move by Lila C0. It's a liberating move. Maybe you can pause the video and try to see now the best continuation, because you have to always notice that this game could end in a draw if black plays a very powerful blockade. If black blocks out here the position, then if black, for instance, managed to somehow never ever allow this pawn to move, then it could be a draw line. But here Lila C0 found a great move, and it's the move f5. Temporarily sacrificing the pawn. After g takes f5, we have king to f4, but now after bishop to f2, we can take out this pawn, and you see now we have here 3 versus 2 situation on the king side, but also this is a very annoying pass pawn. In the continuation of the game, bishop to b6, black has to always protect this potential promotion on the b file, so that's why blocking out is the normal idea. We have now h4, bishop to f2, h5, we have now bishop to f7, great tactics here by Lila C0, creating now passer. If you take, of course, king to f7, then we can play g6, h takes g6, we have h takes g6, now king to g7 or king to e7 has to be played, but I still think now after something like e6, we can simply push this pawn, then also this pawn, so these 3 pawns can never be catched up only by the king and the bishop, so it's a winning continuation here for white. So great move, as said, bishop to f7, great tactics here, bishop to c5, bishop to g8, bishop king to d7. Now Lila C0 simply takes, push the pawn further, here promotion, and of course it's a completely winning endgame here, promotion on b1, but not a problem, the bishop is covering that square, so bishop to king to c5. Now Lila C0 goes for a new queen, and here after queen to c8, it was a checkmate. So really brilliant stuff. Let's go back a little bit to this critical moments of this game. Bishop to e3. Let's go to this idea g4. This was really a surprise. If you put now this position into the database, you'll not find the human game played in this particular line. g4, really wild stuff. You see the position is so dynamic, the position can get so dynamic with d5. I think d5, as we said, would be one of the main tactical and strategical goals now after the move g4. I think this came as a surprise. Really great positional understanding by Lila C0 in this particular line, so Lila C0 now won the game. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. My son joined the stream, and so far we have to then say bye, say hi. Okay, I'm sorry about that. So okay, my son joined the stream. I have to now make something to eat, and he woke up. So in the future, of course, we're covering some more games from this tournament. I hope you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more games played by Lila C0 like this, check out my best chess games of all times played by the top engines. Here's the link, and I'm a little bit confused now. My son woke up, so see you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.